Good morning, class. Welcome to Fundamentals of Design. Today we are going to learn about emphasis, and I believe this is this is a 6th module. So, yeah, it is. So, all right, this is fun. Here you go. Here, every time we're going to get this. I'm going to make the copies for you. You know where they are. Emphasis. So here we are with some pages to read. There's 2 of those. I'm going to read them to you. You can follow along. Oh, sorry, there's 3. And they're important. So we're just going to have to read through them. So if you want to just sit there and listen, that's fine. But I've learned that if I don't read them, then they don't get read. So, oh, and welcome to my studio. This is the Godstone Ranch in Houston. So, all right. The 4 assignments are going to be isolation, leading lines, convergence, anomaly, and placement. Okay, so what we're going to use today, let me put these back in order. What you're going to use today, get all your stuff out like you always do, but let me remind you, ruler, colored pencils. Now remember, if you're in my class, I have everything you need in my cupboard. So a bunch of colored markers if you have them, or you can use mine, and an eraser, and some pencils. And I know that you guys have those cassettes and your black pens. Okay? All right, so let's just start reading. Okay. 1 second. Here we go. All right. While I'm reading this, I want you to look right here and try to understand what's going on. Emphasis, dominance. Emphasis is created by visually reinforcing something we want the viewer to pay attention to. Focal points are areas of interest. The viewer's eyes skip to. The strongest focal point and the greatest visual weight is the dominant element of the work. Elements of secondary importance could be termed subdominant, and elements with the least visual weight subordinate. Isolation, leading lines, convergence, and contrast, anomaly, size, placement, framing, focus, and depth of field, and the absence of focal points are some of the strategies used to help create these degrees of importance. So let's go through all of those. Number 1, isolation. So you're going to look at this page and see with me, okay? By separating the subject from other distracting elements and placing it against a plain background, the viewer is left with nothing else to focus on. In drawing and painting, etc., this means not adding anything that does not add to or emphasize the subject or purpose. Photographers need to pay special attention to what is in the background of the picture and work to eliminate unwanted clutter. This can be done by changing the viewpoint the photo is taken from, or by masking or removing things from view. Okay, so let's look at this. In comparison, that's isolation, right? So now if I took this away, then that would be a focal point, but it's because it's next to this one, it gives you the point, which is this one's isolated, and these are a whole bunch of happy little fun circles that are all hanging around together. See what I'm saying? So together, this image would be better versus just one of those. And then that obviously is not isolation, right? Okay, let's go to the next one. Leading lines and convergence. A line, arrow, or similar triangle or elongated element can indicate a direction and point towards something, leading the eye in that direction. When multiple elements converge toward a point, such as lines going back into perspective, they can create an even greater pull of attention to that direction. Okay, so let's look at this. Are they going in? Are they going out? But they're still going in a circle, right? So that's direction. This is obviously has arrows, so it's pointing you in a direction. Again, everything's swirling around in a direction. It doesn't always have to be circles, by the way. And this one pointing into the red, that's emphasizing the red one, not the blue ones. And it's also showing you that it's all pointing in. This is a really cool design. This is convergence, because leading line and convergence, because see how all of these strings or lines, roads, whatever these are, they all come to right there. Everything converges to right there. Okay, next. Contrast. The more strongly something contrasts with its surroundings, the easier it is to see and the more energy it will seem to have. Strong contrast in value, color, etc. can make elements pop. So that's how you have the contrast here. It's also dominance and leading lines. So there's also color makes it pop. Okay, so contrast. Anomaly. A single square in a repeating pattern of circles. We just did patterns, remember? So repeating pattern of circles will stand out. It's not like everything else. It doesn't blend in. It breaks the pattern. This can also call attention to and add interest. In something perfectly flat, smooth, white, etc., our eye will always be drawn to the one little flaw, the pencil scratch, the rough spot, the wrinkle. Anomaly can also be created by juxtaposing things that are not normally seen together and depicting scenes that invert or alter the everyday. So this one, flying loose versus all of these that are stuck together. This flower, all of these flowers are red, and this one happens to be white. The trees are a repetitive pattern, and then this one person is taking away the tree. It's also opposite, complementary colors, which is the red. And then these are opposite in color, but look at, there's one shape that stands out because we can see that that's the deal. All right, so now we're going to go do with size. The larger it is, the more visual weight it will have, and the more clarity it will be visible. Do not be afraid to fill the frame with your subject, even if it means not all of the subjects will fit in the frame. Concentrate on and enlarge what is important so the viewer can connect with it. Okay? Placement. Placement. An element placed front and center will confront the viewer. All else being equal, a third of the way in from any border can be visibly pleasing place to locate something of importance. So, obviously, opposite in color, and in that, 2/3 place, the thirds line's pretty much here, and this is kind of the same color, but it's brighter, and it looks really good. Framing. Just as a picture frame sets off a painting from the wall and calls attention to the artwork, similar elements within an artwork can help direct attention. Posing or painting a figure framed by a doorway, window, objects associated with them, a cook framed by hanging pots and pans, etc., or other environmental element can help set off the subject and tell something about it. In three-dimensional work, framing, tubes, tunnels, portals, openings, gaps, cracks, etc., can not only reveal or limit views, they can also let in and channel light, wind and rain, creating other interests. Wind and rain, Anyway, okay, so let's look at that. Doorway with light, that's the focal point. Framing with the windows right here, and in the thirds lines section. The smoke is making a nice silhouette, which is showing you the focal. There's the gaps and the cracks that's talking about, so this is black with a nice silhouette right there. Very nice. Okay. All right, so focus and depth of field. When we look at something, we focus on it so we can see sharp detail. In art, areas depicted in sharp focus will be dominant. Depth of field is the range from near to far in which objects appear to be in focus. When you look out at a landscape, for example, everything from pretty close to far, far away appears in focus. If your vision or glasses are good and the depth of field is said to be large, deep focus. In this case, other factors than focus will direct attention within the work. If you are looking at someone's face close to yours, you may only be able to focus on their eyes, while everything else is blurry. This is called shallow depth of field, or shallow focus. Using a shallow depth of field gives the artist the ability to direct attention by choosing just what she wants or he wants to be focused on, be it near, distance, middle, or far. Blurring the background can be a good way to reduce distracting elements and help isolate the subject. Okay, so looky here. You've got the Eiffel Tower, crisp, blurry. You've got the Coke bottles. These are in focus, no and no, blurry. This one person has a really crisp eyes and focus on the face. All the rest of this is blurry. Okay, so you've done the full thirds a lot, but this is like an extension of the cool factor of the rule of thirds. So let's look at these together. This is the one that you normally do, where you have the one place in those four for the cross. This is, taking two spaces, or these two spaces, or the top two, or the bottom two. This one is taking the line as the focal point. This one is called the columns. So isn't that neat? Two columns or leaving one out. This is build row. So that's pretty cool. And then diagonal. It's pretty nice. So this is important because what are we studying this week? Emphasis and dominance. Okay. The rule of thirds is a rule of thumb or guideline which applies to the process of composing visual images such as designs, films, paintings, photographs. The guideline processes that an image should be imagined as divided into 9 equal parts by 2 equally spaced horizontal lines and 2 equally spaced vertical lines. And that important compositional elements should be placed along these lines or their intersections. Proponents of the technique claim that aligning a subject with these points creates more tension, energy, and interest in the composition than simply centering this subject. In fact, if you put something right in the center, it's called centrifugal, and it's kind of irritating. People don't know what to do. They just stare, and then they go, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and they look around, and they go right back to it, and they go, oh, I don't know what to do. So that's a tough one. The photograph, okay, so here we go. So let's look at these images right here. The photograph to the right demonstrates the application of the rule of thirds. The horizon sits at the horizontal line, right here, bing, dividing the lower 2/3 of the photograph from the upper 2/3. The tree, bing, sits at the intersection of 2 lines, sometimes called a power point or a crash point. Points of interest in the photo do not have to actually touch one of these lines to take advantage of the rule of thirds. For example, the brightest part of the sky, bing, near the horizon where the sun recently set does not fall directly on one of the lines, but does fall near the intersection of 2 of the lines, close enough to take advantage of the rule. So here you go again. This is the bottom, like this one, not so good, this one's better. This, it's just kind of in the middle, and this is the middle, but see how we moved it over? So this is on one of the lines. It's the horizon goes lower into the bottom third. This goes up in the top third. So this is sort of this, and probably this right here. Okay, something like that. So yeah. All right, so we read it all, and now let's talk about what we're going to do. Over here. Okay, emphasis and dominance. So assignment 1, right in here, is going to be to draw isolation. Now, I just kind of left it plain, like draw an isolation image, but you know me, I want it to be very nicely done. I want it to fill up the entire space. I want it to be a finished piece. So if you want to use your colored pencils to show isolation, or if you want to use your markers, you can use your black ink and big and small. You can use pencils, but whatever you do, it's called fundamentals of design. If it's a bad design and no one wants to look at it, then what was the point? So you're trying to draw 4 incredibly good designs. So let's pull out my little whiteboard. And let's talk about what we don't want to do. Okay, let's go back to our sheets. And we are going to go to isolation. Let's go back to this section here. If it's on a plain background, it says it's isolation. So I want to show you that, let's just say that hand, that's isolation. And this hand would be isolation. But together, that's not really isolation. Unless you put colors on this one and nothing on that one, then it would show opposite, and they're or just alone. Okay, the cats, there's 3 cats, so this does not look like isolation yet, but if you put 2 in a, let's say right here, the blue, and then you learned about complementary colors last week, so if you put this one in orange, then that would be isolation. That would be like, well, why is this one left alone in its own little orange color? So what I want you to do is figure out how you're going to take your whole rectangle, whether you're going to use shapes, sizes, colors, you know, how you're going to do it, and what images you're going to use. I don't want you to do, oh, well, I'll just do circles. Can I use your template, Miss Garrett? So just, you know, don't do what you see here. Come up with something creative on your own and fill up the entire thing to where I can go, wow, that's really creative. All right, so we are going to start with assignment number 2, which is leading lines and convergence. I don't want to see you do a circle with arrows, okay? I want you to do something, or I don't want you to copy this. So what are you going to do? I don't really know, but that's because you are creative and there's no one like you. You're the only one like you. And I want you to fill it up, fill the whole rectangle right here, this whole thing, and make it beautiful and a good design. So I don't want to see, remember when we did flow? I don't want to see flow. That's flow is pattern. That was one way, one thing. But leading lines and convergence has to be completely different. So, next one. Anomaly. Anomaly's fun. I love Anomaly. So, you can go back to your pattern, what you learned with the Fundamentals of Design pattern, right? This is kind of creating a pattern. And you think about it, if it's an anomaly, it has to break something and be its own little self. Well, pattern is like, kind of goes hand in hand with anomaly, okay? Because look, pattern, 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 right? And then this one breaks the pattern, breaks the pattern, breaks the pattern, breaks the pattern. So how are you going to do the pattern? What pattern you do, and please don't come up with just flowers. Don't copy this. Come up with something that is all your own, that is wonderful and beautiful, and fill up the whole space, please. The next one. Oh, this is going to be fun. Okay, so the thirds right here. You're going to do, in the rectangle below, you're going to do placement. So, and you're going to use the rule of thirds. So what I want you to do is tell me, write it down under here, which one are you working on to create your image, your beautiful image. And it needs to be a beautiful drawing when you're finished. I don't want it to look like, you know, you spent 2 seconds on it. It needs to be something really nice, really that you've really thought through, that makes me really look at it and go, that's nice. That person really tried hard to make a beautiful image. Okay, so those are your 4, and then you're going to submit those right on time. I'm trying not to draw anything right now, because if I draw something, then I don't want you to copy what I'm drawing either. If you're in class, we will talk about this a whole lot more. If you're not in class, then go to the support videos on each one of those that we talked about. Let me see, what were they again? Isolation, leading lines, convergence, and anomaly and placement. So you can, with the thirds. So you can go online, you can look at, you know, spend some time on your own doing that. And if you're in class, we're going to draw this together. Everybody's going to be drawing these on the board and on your own pages, and we're going to be talking about that over at the critique area. Okay, so I want to say thank you for coming to watch, and I hope you were in class, but if you're watching this because you just want a little extra, thank you for doing that too, and God bless you guys.